And I'm going to start us with a quick poll before I turn it over to Ruby. So if you take a minute to answer this poll. So if you're just joining us, there should be a quick poll that has popped up that you can answer real quick. I think we're just waiting on a few more people. If you need closed captioning, you can enable that on your screen. There should be a closed captioning button that you can enable should you need that feature. We have a few more people we're waiting on to select elections.
He has one of those rollaways.
All right. I'm gonna end the poll. So it sounds like everyone's looking for a little bit of different things during this week. The one thing I will say is definitely make contact with your campus study abroad office. There is a session for almost everything that you're looking to gain this week. So definitely make sure you reach out to your campus study abroad office if there's something in particular that you want to be able to learn about during our study abroad fair week. So I will turn this over to Ruby for her to start her presentation.
Great, thanks so much, LaSharon. And I'll echo what LaSharon mentioned here, that all of these topics, you'll have this great opportunity this week to hit on those as you visit through sessions. Definitely we'll be chatting through some of these different categories today, such as paying for study abroad, connecting with professional goals, and then of course keeping it diverse and inclusive, since that'll be majority of what we'll be chatting through today, and opportunities and resources that you can utilize through diversity abroad. So everyone, just give me one moment here. I'll kick us off, get our presentation started. All right. Okay, so welcome to the Diversity Abroad session. I'm really thrilled to be here and sharing this space with you all today. I was just chatting with LaSharon, but I had the opportunity to visit the UC Riverside campus back in January of 2019, which right now, or I guess it was 2020. Can't really believe it's the same year, since obviously so many things have changed since then, but I'm really grateful for this space to be able to still come to you and share some of the resources that we have available to you through Diversity Abroad. And so welcome to this session, and we'll get started here in a moment. All right, so just an overview of what we'll be touching on today. Definitely want to keep it informal, so make sure to utilize the chat box if you have questions at any point. I'll keep an eye on that as we go through, and I know LaSharon will as well. We'll definitely have time for questions at the end too. But we'll go through a brief overview of Diversity Abroad, the resources available on diversityabroad.com, a program that we've launched called the Global Inclusive Leadership Certificate. We'll definitely touch on scholarships and what that looks like during this time that we're all navigating right now. And then I'll leave you with some steps to continue to take action and stay connected with us even after this presentation. So just a little bit about me. I know we have so much screen time these days. We're seeing so many different people. So I've been really liking to start these with just sharing a little bit about who I am, what I'm doing here today. So my name is Ruby Shields, and I'm the program coordinator for student services at Diversity Abroad. I've been with Diversity Abroad for a little over a year now. Again, what a wild year to switch jobs and start this whole different kind of career path. But I've been very grateful for the opportunity to still be able to engage with students virtually. Before Diversity Abroad, I was working at the University of Washington in Seattle in their study abroad office. And so a little bit about my background. So I was born and raised in Washington State. I currently live in Portland, Oregon, where I went to college at the University of Portland right here. Go Pilots. My parents are from Panama and Nicaragua, so I'm a first-generation American. You know, definitely something that absolutely influenced my experience with studying abroad, and some of the barriers that I faced, but also a lot of what I ended up getting out of it can really be tied back to that part of my own identity and my family and being first generation Americans. And so I studied abroad for 6 months. My junior year, I spent a semester in Granada, Spain. So a little picture of that there in Sevilla. So I did a homestay experience, and I did all of my classes were in Spanish, and I was studying political science and economics. And then after that, I had the opportunity to go back to Spain about 5 years later and leading a high school group abroad. So that's this photo here. And then I just always add a picture of my dog, Max, because at this point, we can never have too many pet photos that we're seeing. So just a little bit about myself. Again, in this role at Diversity Abroad, I work specifically on the student services team, and I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to meet with students, host workshops, and help students who experience a lot of the same barriers and concerns about funding and how to talk about study with their family, you know, thinking about, you know, representation in study abroad and what that looks like, and how all of these experiences can really help, you know, any student, no matter what they're studying, in the long run with their different career goals, grad school goals, and all of that. So I work with our scholarships team. And also, you know, pre-COVID was traveling to campuses. Now have, you know, the honor to be able to come to you all virtually in these different spaces. So it's a little bit about me. And now I'm going to a little bit about Diversity Abroad. So Diversity Abroad is a partner with over 300 different colleges and universities around the country. And we really exist to support students from diverse and underrepresented backgrounds throughout each phase of the global process. And we're very happy that despite, you know, the halt on global programs and the uncertainty in the field right now, we're still out here trying to make sure that students know what steps that they can be taking in this moment to plan ahead for a time when global programs are possible again, but also thinking about ways to stay globally engaged even in this time where we're not necessarily getting on airplanes and traveling to different countries. And so, you know, we've been around since 2006, and Diversity Abroad really started with diversityabroad.com, which was just a place where our CEO was like, there are not a lot of people that look like me studying abroad. Where can we find resources to be able to connect with other folks who might have these experiences? And so that website has since, again, grown to this quite large community of students and professionals who are really seeing the importance of making these global programs not only accessible, but giving students the tools to thrive in these programs as well. And so one of the big parts of our mission is to increase representation and to really start to challenge that narrative of who can benefit from global programs and who they're for. And so that's really what inspired Diversity Abroad, and that's what really continues to keep us motivated and going. And even in this space, again, just to you know, want to make sure we're centering the reality of what we're living in right now. We're still able to do that through connections and through being able to come to events like this, and to also share about our virtual resources as well. All right, so speaking of virtual resources, first wanted to touch on the resources that are available to you, completely open access and free on diversityabroad.com. And so diversityabroad.com is really the hub of all of our student-facing resources. So this includes our scholarships search, our articles and resources, and our destination guides. Excuse me, so just a note on our scholarship search right now, just given that global programs are currently paused in this term, and just looking ahead to what that might look like, you are still definitely able to peruse our scholarships that are available, but you'll see notes on there about whether or not the scholarship is being offered, and if it is offered for a virtual program as well. And so what that is that some of our scholarships are being offered for virtual opportunities. So if you are planning to engage in a virtual internship or a virtual study abroad, some of those resources might be available coming spring and summer 2020. 2021. And so I'll leave you with where you can go to find more information about that. But definitely this can be part of, as you're looking through resources and compiling the different ways to possibly pay for a global program, definitely keep diversityabroad.com in your list of resources to check on. And as LaSharon mentioned, definitely make sure that you're in communication with your own study abroad advisor on your campus, whether that's going to drop an hour, scheduling a chat, whatever that might look like on your campus. Starting those conversations early are going to be the best way to maximize the resources you have access to. So secondly, looking at articles and resources, again, in that same vein of thinking about representation and how we can continue to challenge this idea of who goes abroad and who's traveling. We have amassed this huge bank of articles and resources that are available for students. Again, open access. You can just go onto our website, and up across this tab up here, you'll see articles and resources. And this will share stories from different alumni, from different professionals who spent time abroad, talking about their own experience and what that was like for them. So it's everything from how do you talk to your parents about going abroad and some tips on how to approach those conversations, to what is it like to be LGBTQ studying in Italy? What is it like to be a woman of color studying in France, whatever that might be? How do you navigate wanting to go to a country or a location that isn't quite as popular? You want to try something that's a little bit different. How do you talk about how do you prepare yourself for traveling in those spaces as well? And so our articles and resources are split up by phases. So everything from just exploring global programs, living in country, returning, and then how to get career ready. So in terms, we talk about career ready as how do you use your global experiences and what you've encountered abroad to help prepare you for whatever that next step might look like. So whether that's graduate school or really just diving into your career, how do you talk about your global experience in an interview or on a resume? Those resources are all touched on in this article section here. And so definitely invite you to take a look and start poking around in that space. And then third, our destination guides. So these guides, also found here under the resources tab, are a collection of, I think there's about 35 now countries represented. And these are destination guide articles that talk about what it's like to be in these different countries based on different identities. So there are sections about the diversity and inclusion climate in these countries and what that's like, along with just some more general information about what it's like to be in these different locations. And so this is a great resource, if you know that you think you want to go abroad, but you're still considering what country, or you're, maybe have looked a lot into a particular country that seems pretty popular, but you're interested now, and maybe what could it be like to be somewhere that's maybe less traveled by folks on your campus, or that you are just a little curious about. This is the place to start looking and just to start learning. And I would say this is a great resource right now, especially as you have some space to be planning further ahead, what that might look like for you. This is a great resource to keep in mind as well. And so here, this is just another screenshot that shows some of the articles. Like I said, we try to keep these articles fresh and relevant for what's going on right now. And so as we're looking at questions of study abroad safety, how do you process what it might be like to travel after this period that we're in, and as you're planning ahead, and again, having those conversations with people who are important in your life and who will need to be involved in these decisions. We also have the diversity and inclusion abroad guide. So again, spoken from the lens of specific diverse perspectives. This is really a great place to start thinking about how your own identity will play into your experience abroad, and what sorts of things you might want to keep in mind. And then, of course, thinking about virtual experiences as well. So we had a great cohort of of diversity abroad scholars this summer who all engaged in sort of virtual global experience. So we had folks that were doing a research project about the comparing legislatures in Africa, so different countries and what their legislatures look like, and amassing all of this research. And then we had a student who did a virtual internship with a Doctors Without Borders type of nonprofit. And so just thinking about how are those opportunities still out there, and how can you, if that's something you're interested in, still take advantage of something global and engaging in something global from your couch, like the student here who talked about an internship that they did that was initially supposed to be, I believe, in New York City with an NGO, and ended up being remote. And so, you know, having some truthful processing of course, you know, we're all, you know, I guess speaking for myself, definitely missing the times where we could be planning ahead or know what our next trip was, but also taking this time to figure out how I can still be globally engaged, and how our students can still be globally engaged, even when we're not actively traveling at the moment. And so another note I'll say about the articles that we have is we really strive to get honest testimonies and honest experiences from our students. One thing that you know, I think we often hear about when people talk about their time abroad is, oh, it was so great, or it was life-changing, or it was wonderful. And you know, it definitely can be all those things, but that's not always the case. And in fact, a lot of the learning and the growth that comes from being abroad, interning abroad, you know, research abroad, comes from some of the challenges that are faced, and some of those like learning opportunities. And of course, it might not seem that way at the time, but at least I know for myself, those are the things that really I look back on that actually benefited me from doing these experiences. And so we really challenge our scholars and the authors that provide this content on our website to take that really honest, raw approach. And of course, you want to hear all of the great and fun and, you know, the trips that they took, but we also want to hear about some of the personal reflection and any challenges that they overcame and how that ended up helping them. And so I say that to say that it's definitely a wide variety of experiences that are shared. And so if you're looking for some of that kind of honest feedback of what experiences were like, I definitely encourage you to check out these articles as you're planning your own next steps. So with that, so leave you with diversitybrowser.com articles and resources. Check out. Next opportunity that I wanted to mention here is our Global Inclusive Leadership Certificate. And so this is a program that we've just launched, again, in that space of wanting to have opportunities for students to still be globally engaged at this time, while also helping to grow in these skill areas that we are seeing that students are really taking on and leveraging in their career paths later on. And so the Global Inclusive Leadership Certificate is a 9-week program offered through Diversity Abroad. And as you see here, really looking at topics of global competence, cultural humility, inclusive leadership, belonging in action, and career readiness. And so the thought behind this was really to create a lot of the learning opportunities that we see students talking about after their global programs, but offering it in this virtual space, and also having the opportunity for students to connect with each other across different campuses. As I said, we just launched this program in the fall, and we've had a cohort of students from the University of Auckland join in the rest of the students who are primarily from the US. So it's been a really interesting and really fun example, I guess, of that intercultural learning that happens oftentimes on global programs, that we've been able to experience some of that in the virtual space. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, we have the spring course information up on our website, and I can again lead you to where that will be. That course runs February 1st through May 7th, and applications are opening in the next couple of weeks here on November 16th. And that's just a little screenshot of one of our cohort meetings from a couple of weeks ago. Exciting that I just found out, and I was happy I was able to put this in here, but we will have full scholarships available for this program. So if it's something that you're interested in to enhance the virtual learning that you're going to continue to be doing, but in this space, I'm really dedicated to inclusive leadership, I invite you to check that out as well. And as I mentioned, we're really, this opportunity is really to provide some of that intercultural opportunity, or opportunities for intercultural communication and engagement, and growing some of those skills that, if you haven't yet been abroad, will definitely serve you when you go. And then if you have been abroad or you're a returning student, definitely would have a lot to gain in terms of how to continue to leverage your global experiences as you think about what your next steps are. And this is just a little screenshot I put in here about scholarships as well. We'll have information on exactly which web pages you can go to for all of this, but just so you get another view of what our site looks like. And then here, just thinking about taking action after this presentation, what you can do. Again, as LaSharon mentioned, definitely, first of all, kudos for even being here right now and engaging, taking in all of this information. And I know you have another week's worth of information to go through. So that's great to continue to stay involved, continue to take note of what opportunities you are interested in pursuing. And then, of course, touching base with your campus advisor and making sure that you're getting the ball rolling and starting those conversations as early as, again, now is great to continue to do that, and making sure that you're giving yourself as much time to be able to, again, maximize all the resources that are available to you. And so Diversity Abroad partners with the UC system, so you have access to these resources, and we invite you to check them out. Again, on diversityabroad.com, we have a spot where you can sign up for the newsletter. So if you are interested in staying up to date about scholarships, we send out a newsletter about once a month. So really careful not to spam anyone, but definitely would be the best place to get information about our upcoming events, such as the next cohort of the leadership certificate, and then of course, all of the scholarships. I always put this on here, become a contributor. Again, our community is strong because of the students who share their stories and who share, their experiences with us. And so maybe it's a little early for this, but after you do have a global experience, or even if just navigating the process is something that you are starting to, if you've learned any best practices or any tips as you started to, start this journey of going on a global experience, there's a contributor page on our website as well, and we invite you to share your story if that's something that you feel compelled to do. And then, of course, give us a follow. We're on all social medias at Diversity Abroad, and again, we share here upcoming events and scholarships and places we'll be, and we also host a variety of different live webinars and workshops throughout the year as well. And so if you're interested in diving into any more of those topics, some of what we covered here today, but then we also have some other events where we highlight either alumni. We have one coming up if anyone is interested in Ireland or possibly studying abroad in Ireland. We have an Inclusive Ireland workshop on November 10th, and I can throw that information in the chat once I close this here. But that will be a wonderful panel of 3 students who have studied abroad in Ireland, discussing their experiences with race in Ireland and what that was like for them. And so I'm really excited to host this panel with these students. And again, that's just an example of the types of events that we've got. And so I want to make sure we leave time for questions, but I will leave this up here as well in terms of how you can stay in touch, how you can stay connected. You're welcome to email me here. I'm Ruby Shields. This is my email address. You're also welcome to follow us again and definitely check us out on the website. So with that, I want to make sure I double check this chat box to see if there are any questions, but that winds down the formal presentation. Again, I really appreciate you all tuning in and being here, and I'm grateful to the UC system for the space. And so at this time, if there are any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, or LaSharon, if you had another way, if folks want to raise their hand, we can go back to cameras as well. So thank you. Let's see here. I will grab the information for the Inclusive Ireland webinar and put that in here as well. So if you just give me one moment.
I do not have another way for them to, so that either
Okay.
either they can unmute themselves and ask the question, or they can use the chat box. I do have one more poll, so don't leave until I give the last poll.
Okay.
I'm just letting them know so they don't like dip in.
Yeah, hang out and let's do the poll. Just 1 second and I will get the Inclusive Ireland.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and do the last poll, gives them a chance to think about any additional questions that they may have.
Sounds good. Great. Okay, so the Inclusive Ireland webinar, also on Zoom, is shared in the chat box. And so that'll just take you to the Zoom registration, where then you can fill that out and it'll give you the link to join that. That's on November 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern, so that's 1 p.m. Pacific. Oh, great, love to see it. 78% more likely, good.
Mm-hmm. So I would say is that if this did not answer what you were looking for, definitely go back to your Campus Study Abroad office website for the fair information for this week, because there are sessions that cover literally almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that it does not cover is how to do it all. Well, yeah, in a way, good, because if you apply for scholarships, I have had students who have done it basically scot-free, but that's applying to everything. So
Yes.
I'll let you know, scholarship day is Wednesday. So if you're looking at a finance thing, you want to look at all the sessions on Wednesday, because there are a lot of them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Along with starting early, I think apply to everything is another great nugget of wisdom to take with you. You know, that's definitely was true for me and for a lot of students that we work with, is just kind of treating scholarship applications and fellowship applications as a part-time job almost, and thinking of it that way, because it can, you know, once you start to think about how, you know, the time that you're putting into it, and then, you know, receiving an award, the time that you are putting into it, chatting with an advisor, building in time to make sure that someone can read your application and provide feedback, you know, the possibility for return is really great. And so definitely thinking about it in that way as a part-time job helped me to justify all the time I'm spending on scholarship applications.
So it doesn't, oh, there is a question. Will this presentation be posted online? Each campus will have a different way of posting the recordings that we have. So you may want to refer to your Campus Study Abroad office of where they will be posting the recorded session.
Great. Just put our little home screen back on. No pressure on the cameras, anyone. But yeah, I still have a, let's see, I still have the chat box up. So if there's any other questions, please feel free. If anyone, you know, has any places that they're thinking of going, we can put this on, throw that in the chat to fuel our wanderlust and planning for the future.
Because I know I'm ready to escape again. When will it be safe for travel? Is there any recommendations for when to study abroad? You know what? I'm wondering if she's still here. Inez, are you still on here? I was gonna throw that question to her.
Oh, was that
from the UCP system, because she was here. When it comes to safety, believe it or not, right now, it's one of those things that we probably don't have an exact answer to right now, especially if you're looking at a UCAP program. We're looking at guidelines to see what programs may be suspended in the future. So a lot of it's going to be based on regulations from the US. It will be regulations from the host country. It's going to also depend on whether consulates are going to open up to allow for visas to be processed. So, I mean, in terms of international travel, it's happening, but very limited. So when it comes to study abroad, I know we do have students who are supposed to depart for spring quarter programs for those that are in quarter system schools in the UC. And so our hope is that the spring quarter programs will go. Other than that, we are planning to have students abroad for 21-22.
Yeah. Thanks. And it looks like part of the question after that was if there, for when it is safe, are there any recommendations? And to that, I'll say, again, not to give a non-answer, but a lot of that depends on what your, what your goals are and related to study abroad. Some students are really interested in advancing a language. Other students are particularly interested in having this be a part of helping them in their future career goals. Other students want to go somewhere that's a bit off the beaten path and maybe, again, is kind of outside the main countries that US students tend to go to, which are a lot of European countries. And other students, wanted to potentially use study abroad as a way to heritage seek. So if their parents, so for example, for myself, my dad's from Panama, so I could potentially think about, oh, that would be a really, as a place to learn about my own heritage and my own culture. And so I would say that's a great question. I think that that's a process of asking yourself what you want out of your study abroad. And then again, speaking with your campus advisor, getting connected to other students that have studied abroad and trying to figure out how they narrowed it down to where they wanted to go. But I think that the great thing about this space right now is that there is some time to be having those reflective conversations with yourself, trying to figure out what you want out of a global experience, setting up those meetings, chatting with as many people as you can to start kind of narrowing it down. At the same time, I think students have randomly picked a place and had incredible experiences too. And so kind of depends also on your personal style of like how much of planning do you want and how much are you more of a, this seems great. I'm able to check all the boxes to go here. I can find funding to go and we're going to do that. I think there's also a lot to be said about that following the money. There's a lot of programs or specific locations that might have more funding available. And if that's, if funding is a big concern, thinking about that as an opportunity as well in terms of looking at what might be available and what might have more availability for funding opportunities too.
I'm just going to expand on Ruby's answer just a little bit. Look at it this way. Personally, academically, professionally, practically. Academically, you could go ask any one of your study abroad advisors. They will have a program for you because study abroad is for all majors. So for me, when I studied abroad, I had no academic reason. But personally, I just wanted to date hot guys and eat good food. You got to think, I was a Highlander, so my Highlanders out there, you're probably laughing because yes, I'm one of you. That's all I want to do was my personal reason. Because me, I had no academic. Then I have had students who are like, okay, academically, I need to complete Spanish, but I have to take my surfboard. So then I'm like, okay, where in the world can I let you get your Spanish done, but you can surf? All right, Costa Rica. So then on top of that, you add extra layers. Practically and professionally, do I want to do research? Do I want to volunteer? Do I want to do an internship? So think about all these other little elements. And once you add that on, that's going to help your study abroad advisor help you narrow down what's the best program. Then adding on a layer for the questions that have come up about paid study abroad programs. I wouldn't say quote unquote paid, but there are some study abroad programs that do offer some form of scholarship or grant. So one that I can think of off the top of my head is the Critical Language Studies program, where you're going to learn a language. They're actually presenting this week as part of our calendar on Wednesday. So I believe it's Wednesday. So if you're thinking about trying to learn a critical language, that's a program for you. There are others out there. So if you're looking for options like that, you definitely want to make contact with your study abroad office because each campus does something a little bit different of what those may be. If you're a Highlander, come find your crazy little redhead. I will help you out.
Yeah, that's great.
Payment.
You never have to navigate this process by yourself, and it can definitely seem like it's this long checklist of things to do, and it can seem that way sometimes, but you're never walking through this alone. There are so many resources from your study abroad advisor, chatting with your financial aid advisor, they're chatting too. And so make sure that you are making contact with your campus advisor as soon as possible to just, again, even if you're just in the space of where should I go and having that conversation, they're a place to brainstorm.
I am going to drop the link. At least I think I have the link. Let's see. I'm going to drop the link for those who wanted to register for the critical language program in the chat box.
Great.
Are there any other final questions? We do have some time, whether it's about a certain program, certain thing you're looking for. Any questions about diversity and inclusion while being abroad?
Keeping an eye on any hands that are. So I had the question asked again, Sharon, of where folks can see the recording of this. You had mentioned that each campus will have a different page.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, so I would definitely refer back to your study abroad office on your campus because each place is posting this information in a different space.
Great, I will.
And it appears that we don't have any more lurking questions. It always happens.
All right.
As soon as you say we're done, and here comes the last one. But I want to thank you all, and I certainly want to thank Ruby coming out to share with us from Diversity Abroad.
Thanks for having me. And again, thanks all of you for being here, and wish you the best on next steps, whatever that looks like for you, and just know that there is support at each step of the way.
Definitely. So I want to thank you all for
Thanks,
coming.
everyone.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Where is the recording button?